Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to learn about shadows and highlights command. Now, the shadow and highlights command has separate controls for lightening the shadows and darkening the highlights. Remember how I said that? Lightening the shadows and darkening the highlights. So for each pixel, this command will decide whether to treat it as a shadow, a highlight, or neither. Then it determines how much to brighten or darken the appropriate one. Okay, now you'll see in this image, this looks like, okay, I got a great image of a window and that's it. So the rest is black. What's the point? True. But I always like to see what if Photoshop can help me to bring something out of it, or maybe something I missed. What I think is funny about this photo is, I live in the United States, and so we went to Barcelona, so this is still in United States time. So obviously we were not here at 5:24 a.m. So I just thought that was kind of funny. But with this image, you go to Image, Adjustments, and then you go all the way down here to Shadow and Highlights. You're probably going to see this shadow and highlights, just these two controls. Just click here, which will open up more controls for you. Make sure your preview is selected, because if you don't have it selected, you can't see. And always remember to press Alt and click on the cancel to reset it if you want to reset it. Nice little handy thing to know. Now we have the amount. I think that's kind of obvious, the amount we want to apply, how strong. And what's about tonal width? Tonal width determines how dark or how light a pixel has to be in order to be considered a shadow or highlight. Okay, the default is 50. So basically it's saying anything darker than 50%, gray is considered a shadow, or vice versa. And radius says, hey, how far do I want to look from this area? The best way to learn about these controls is just to use them. Down here, just talked about this real quick. Color correction is about increasing saturation or decreasing it, and the mid-tone contrast is can be used to fix contrast in the midtones without having to use a separate curve adjustment. And the black clip and white clip, remember we saw that from the levels auto function. I leave it at 0.01. That's what you want to leave it at. You can change these around and you can save them as new defaults if you want to, if you don't want these here. I just leave them as is. A couple other things here real quick. You can save your settings, so if you have more of these in the same type of setting, then you can just load it and apply it real quickly, or I would just save it as a default and then open each image. Now Camera Raw does this also, but we're doing this without Camera Raw, so just let you know. So basically it's the opposite of what you think. So I'm going to apply shadows. I'm going to increase the amount of shadows, and it's lightening it. Huh? What does that mean? It's the opposite of what you're thinking. I have shadows, but I want to increase the light in shadows, which means I want to increase the amount. So it's the opposite kind of what you think, right? So as I increase the amount of light into my shadows, I can see more of the wall, and I can see, look at that, there's a cross with Jesus on it. I didn't even know that was in the photo. Then once I'm happy with the setting, I can increase or decrease the tonal width, but you can see you can overdo it here. And then I can increase or decrease the radius from where it looks. Okay, so maybe here. Once I'm happy with the shadows, I can then go to the highlights, and with that, what does that mean? So if I'm increasing the highlights, what does that mean? I'm increasing to darken the highlights. So I'm darkening the highlights. You would think it's increasing. Now you're probably not seeing it, but look in this window is where you're going to see it. See? So I'm darkening the highlights in the window to see, better window. Increase or decrease the tonal width, and you can see what that's doing to the window and the radius. I can apply a color correction, which is the increase or decrease, but you can see that looks, actually I kind of like it like that. It looks better without the brown color in the stones. Kind of looks creepier. Then I can adjust the mid-tone contrast, and you can see what that does. That actually looks nice too. Wow. Then I can come back up here, maybe increase some more shadow. Actually, I like that better. And then we can see the before and after, so I can see the before, which is you don't think the photo can be saved, and then look at the after. And that's what shadow and highlights does. Isn't it incredible? So what I'm going to say is save as defaults. Okay. And then I'm going to click OK. Now what's the problem with this? It just affected the image data and my background layer. So if I didn't like it, I'm going to have to undo it and then reapply it and adjust the settings. So that doesn't seem like a smart way of working with the shadow and highlights, right? There's actually a different way. So let's say undo shadow highlights. We're going to change this background layer and convert it to a smart object. And you'll see that with the indication here. Now we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Shadow Highlights and apply the settings. I saved the default. I saved it as default, so it brings up the same ones. Click OK and watch what happens. Now it's applying it as a smart filter. Guess what? I can now click on the shadow highlights and adjust it again. Okay? So maybe I thought that that was too much. I can lower it or increase it. Isn't that great? And it doesn't affect the image. So that's another great thing about smart objects that you'll learn in a later lesson about smart objects. But you can see where shadow and highlights, it's great. It also works, by the way, great with variations. All right. In the next lesson, we'll talk about some adjustment filters or adjustment layers.